This is Bible School Radio, KDKR, Decatur, Dallas, Fort Worth, KYJC, Commerce, and KMWC, Bethany. Portions of KDKR programming do not necessarily reflect the views of this station, its management, or staff.
Prudent Money with Bob Brooks is sponsored by the Prudent Money Foundation on 91.3.
Well, what do you do when the unexpected happens with your car? Today we're going to take a look. Stay tuned to the special Car Corner edition of Prudent Money. Good afternoon, this is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thank you so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. Tony Joe's sitting here with me, as he does every Friday, to take your Car Corner questions. The number to call is 1-877-913-5357. 1-877-913-5357. You can also go to the website at www.prudentmoney.com. and send a question in. I'll get that taken care of for you. Always a good place to get information. Your trusted resource at prudentmoney.com. 1-877-913-5357. Well, Tony Joe, you look a little tired. You've been like you've been putting in some hours.
Well, it's been a hot summer to me. Now it hasn't been that hot compared to a lot of summers, but you know, I'm looking forward to it being over.
Yeah,
this weekend
no doubt.
It could be 100 in some places.
Is it really?
But you know, it's going down. It's going away. You know, that's an interesting thing too. Oftentimes people ask me, working in the heat, and you know, I don't work in the direct sunlight like a lot of roofers and people that work outdoors. I don't have it as bad as that, but I am in the air all the time, and there's no air conditioning, so. To a scientist, Bob, I'm glad you asked me this question. To a scientist, there is no such thing as cold. It's only less hot. So now that it's becoming less hot, less warm, does that make me more cooler? How could I be more cooler than I already am? I mean, it seems like an impossible task. But
can I ask you a question? Do you know what it's like to lose control of your radio show?
I can hear buttons turning off all over the Metroplex
The
right
two
now.
people who were listening are gone now, and we have no audience. Oh, boy. I see.
You know, you made the mistake of asking me how I'm doing.
Yeah. Okay, I won't do that again. I will ask you a little bit more of a serious question, because I think that you have an unusual job from the standpoint of you're dealing with people all day and long. Mm-hmm. You're dealing with people who are kind of stressed out more than usual because their car is something's wrong with it. Mm-hmm. You're dealing with people who are wondering, am I going to be able to afford the repair bill? It's just a very anxious time today. What are you seeing when you talk to people?
I agree. It's a very, it's high anxiety. You know, it's a couple of months before an election. The economy, no matter what they tell you on the news, it's not that good, regardless of what they try to tell you. And the reason I know that is because I'm actually in the fray. In other words, I know when the economy's doing better and when it's doing worse. For instance, right now, I am extremely busy, okay? And the reason I'm extremely busy is because people are not buying cars right now. They're hanging on to their vehicles because, number one, the economy is not that great. Number two, the prices on cars are just stupid money. Even used cars still. That market has hung in there longer than I would have thought. But the bottom line is people are hanging on to their vehicles, and it's hard to make, I feel for everybody. I'm a normal, let's not go that far. I'm a regular guy like everybody else.
Cooler regular guy.
Cooler. I've got, a mortgage payment. I've got, utilities. Everything goes up. Insurance. Everything goes up and up and up. So it's kind of a scary time right now for most of us. We're not. It's unpredictable times it's always scary, you know. And so, for that reason, you got to know that people just are, you know, on edge, and I can see it. You know,
I think this just comes to me is that I think in times like this, you just got to really think about showing people grace. And just realize everybody's got a backstory.
Yep. Yes, that's true. Everybody, you know, we all have our own issues to deal with, and that's very true, Bob.
I mean,
Very
I
true.
have to deal with your joke
You
telling.
have to. You put up with me every Friday.
You're pretty easy to put up with. That if that's the worst, if that's as bad as it gets, I guess I'm okay.
You wake up every Friday morning. You go, oh, if I can
it's
just get through this day.
Friday. 1-877-913-5357. That is the number to call. You know, I got a story or an email that I wanted to read you about a check engine light because I've never heard this happen. Maybe you can give some detail with why something like this would happen.
All right, shoot.
It says, okay, my daughter took our car to the dealer for a routine service, paid $800, and 3 days later she drove to Austin and the engine warning light comes on. Still seems to run okay, so she is able to get it back home. They took the car back to the dealer who runs another diagnostic, and he puts two dollar signs by it. They say it's a radiator sensor. Get this, will cost about $3,000 to fix. With the high miles, I decided we needed to trade it in for something new. A week or two later, with the engine light still on, my daughter brings the car to me to trade in for a second car. On the way to the dealership, the engine light does not come on anymore.
Mm-hmm.
The dealer gave us a good deal on the trade. I seemingly saved the expensive hit on the trade value. So several things come to mind.
He didn't really win what he thinks he won because, number one, a radiator sensor, no way is that $3,000 on any car. Now, he's going to get rid of it because he's frustrated with, obviously, the check engine light coming on.
And it's got high miles on it, too.
Okay, so for whatever reason, he's going to trade it in. However, the point about the check engine light coming on and then not coming on, let me explain just a little bit real quick about how that can happen. There are a number of things mechanically that happen every time you drive your car, and when one thing is out of sync or when one little activity fails to register or one wire connection is loose and you go over a bump just right and it glitches the signal going to the computer, you can have a check engine light come on. It doesn't have to be a serious problem. All check engine lights that are on don't necessarily have to be expensive, real big deal, tie up your car for a week kind of problems. For instance, you can get, and we've talked about this many times, you can get fuel at a certain fuel place, and it may not be a name brand, it may be some wholesale market fuel that was purchased that day, which is basically the stuff at the bottom of all the good manufacturers of fuel, ExxonMobil. It's the bottoms of their tanks. So if you get an overabundance of contamination in the fuel, such as sulfur, high concentration of sulfur, or you can have moisture sometimes, you can have different contaminants that don't agree with the fuel injection system, and it doesn't burn the fuel properly, the computer really takes a close look at how the fuel is being distributed, administered, and burned. So if it sees something wrong just due to low fuel quality, it can turn the check engine light on. Now, you think, I got a problem. I'm in Austin. I don't know. Maybe I can limp it back. Well, on the way back from Austin, you got to get gas again, right?
Right.
So you get gas, and within 10 miles after you get different fuel in the tank, better quality perhaps, all of a sudden the light goes off because the computer starts seeing everything the way it likes to see it now, simply due to low quality fuel. So it's not a big mystery. Check engine lights can come on and then they can go off all by themselves. You can even have mechanical issues, thermostat didn't open at the exact right time. Temperature was too low. Computer saw that, flagged a code. You shut it off, and before you could even decide to go get your car fixed, you start it up the next day, thermostat is operating properly. Glitches, little mechanical things can happen. It doesn't, I mean, I've seen this, and it does happen. So oftentimes when people's check engine light comes on, we often say, is the vehicle running okay? Yes. All right. Just be patient. Let's see if it's anything. Number one thing I always ask people to do is check the gas cap. Is it loose? Did you get it tight? Did you leave it off maybe at the gas station? I mean, that alone, Bob, once the evaporative emission system does a pressure test on the system, it's going to see that the gas tank won't hold pressure because there's no cap on it. Well, that doesn't mean you've got to pull over and have your car towed to the dealership. It's a simple thing, you know. Okay, the gas cap is not on the car. I must have left it on the pump, or it wasn't on tight, or it wasn't on at all. It was just hanging by its hanger. Well, all right. Does that mean it's an emergency situation? No. That means you got to go buy a new gas cap, put it on there, and when you drive the car for the next few days, the light will go off because the computer will see the next time it pressurizes the system that it does hold pressure, simply because you replaced the cap. So it's not really all that involved, and it's not always an emergency situation. That's why the check engine light is coded yellow or amber and not red. We pay attention to the red lights first.
Let's talk a little bit about unusual things that happen. Low percentage chance are going to happen. It's just like getting on an airplane.
Like the Cowboys losing?
Yeah, something like that. And
sorry, couldn't
help yourself.
Low percentage.
Okay, so anyway, you're driving down the highway. I mean, I was just thinking about this. What in the world would you do? And I've been doing this show with you for over 20 years, and I still don't think I have an answer.
Okay.
But your car shuts down.
Yeah.
You're going 70
Right.
miles an hour, and boom, just like that.
Exactly.
The power. I guess the power goes out, right? Or what would that look like?
Oh, it could run. A fuel pump could go out. The power could go out. The battery connections, whatever. You can lose power. You can lose fuel. You lose ignition. All these things will just shut the car down.
I guess I'm talking about the drivability of the car is gone.
Right.
Right.
Any one of those things.
And acceleration's gone.
It's like you turn the key off. Right.
Yeah. Right.
So, what do? Well, this is a scary proposition, Bob. It's one of the worst things that can happen, in my opinion. Next to maybe a blowout, but you want to try to always know where your emergency four-way flashers are on any car you're ever in. Not just your car, but they're very easy to spot. They've got usually a triangle, a big red marker. It says emergency flashers. I mean, there's a lot of ways to find them, and you should always know where that is, because if you are 70 miles an hour and you're in the fast lane or you're in the middle lane, you need to obviously get over to the shoulder somehow. And this is really important. So listen, you can put your blinker on. You may have it, and you may not, because we don't know why the car just lost all power. So you'll have the four-ways. If you put the four-way flashers on, people around you are going to know that you've got an issue. Something's wrong. This guy just has his four-ways on. Now, they're going to usually, in my experience, because I've had this happen many times, most people will see the car with the four-ways on, and they will allow you to get over. You know you need to get over. They'll usually let you work your way into the right lane and then eventually to the shoulder. This is where the danger starts. You get over there, and you want to have the four-way flashers on if possible. Now, it sometimes isn't even possible for that. You may not have any four-way flashers. What you do, obviously, is call for help, but you want to do something even before that. There's one thing you really need to do, and that is keep your seatbelt buckled, stay in the car, and stay sitting in the drive. Don't get out, walk around, and try to figure out what's wrong.
Why do people do that?
Well, because it's instinct.
You see that, they'll just, and I just shock, obviously, that you're going through.
Well, you're number one, you're upset, you're full of anxiety. My car just quit. I'm over here on the side of the road, now what? Well, what am I going to do? Let me get out and see what's wrong. Well, it's probably not the wisest thing to do at that point. What you should do is stay in the seat with your seatbelt buckled, call for help, and we've talked about on the back of your license, there's an 800 number that you can call.
Yeah, back of your driver's license.
Yes, the back of your driver's license, or you can call 911, or you can call, there's a lot of places. I mean, people have backup people usually, but in this case, let's say you didn't know what to do. You can call 911 and they'll issue courtesy patrol out there to pull a big truck behind you with the lights on and kind of protect you. But the idea behind staying in the car, Bob, is keep your seatbelt fastened, because if you got hit in the back of the vehicle sitting on the side of the road by an unaware driver and something happened and he hit you, your chances are relatively good, really good, that if you stay in your seat with your seatbelt on, your airbag will protect you if it even goes off. But, you know, you want to be prepared for somebody to hit you from the back of the car just in case. Well,
Go ahead.
a lot of people don't understand how that works, and people have asked me before, do you really need your seatbelt if you got an airbag? Yes, you do. And part of the reason that you do is oftentimes people are not aware of this, but when you put your seatbelt on and you buckle it in, usually on the left side of the seatbelt apparatus, there's a unit down there called a pretensioner. Now, that pretensioner is a highly explosive, so to speak, device. It's a gas that will blow off and pull that seatbelt into your stomach, so to speak. Not enough to hurt you, but it'll keep you restrained as the airbag goes off. If you weren't wearing a seatbelt, the airbag going off could absolutely kill you. It could hurt you, certainly hurt you, but on rare occasions, if you're not buckled in, then you don't really want that airbag to go off. If you use the airbag in conjunction with the seatbelt, you always have to remember, the airbag is designed to be used in conjunction with the seatbelt simply because of the unit called a pretensioner. They've done a lot of research trying to keep you safe behind the wheel. And you being buckled in is the safest thing you can do until help arrives.
So you know, I was thinking about in my mind, you may agree or not agree, but there's a big difference between being stuck in that spot during the night and during the day. And so would you, considering that there's a lot of reasons why people, they drink and they drive, and they get drawn towards the lights.
Yep, yeah.
And so, but how confident not that you're suggesting people do this, but how confident are you in changing a tire during the day or not even during the day?
I wouldn't do it at all.
At all.
If you're on 635 or 35,
yeah, no, when you say it that way.
Right. If you're out there on George Bush and the speed limit's 70 miles an hour, I absolutely, as a mechanic, would not get out of my car and try to change a tire. I wouldn't do it. Wait a minute. Let me back up. Yeah, I would do it. But you call the courtesy patrol. You call 911. You get someone out there to block behind the car with lights so that these courtesy trucks, if you ever notice, are big. They're huge. And they're there because they're going to protect you while you change your tire. That's okay to do. But you don't get out by yourself when there's no protection behind you and you've got other people maybe in the car or so forth. You just don't do that.
So I would assume, and you know a tremendous number of policemen here in the DFW area, I would assume that they go through very extensive training in that particular situation of what you do and what you don't do.
Actually, that's where I learned it. It's from a police officer.
Oh,
you
really?
always stay in the car, stay buckled, everybody stays inside and stays buckled. That is their recommendation under those kind of conditions. And I can understand why.
So at night you turn, either situation, you got your warning lights on. Is there, and most people are not going to go, oh, I think I'll go get this safety item, this safety item, this safety, because Tony Joe said so. They're probably not going to do that. But if you had to have one safety item in your trunk, just to hit the bare minimum, what would you have?
You know, that's a good question because I've often thought of that. If I could have one thing that probably means more than anything is, you know, those warning lights that strobe, you know, the white strobes that really get your attention?
Right.
You can buy certain items that have the strobe light built into it, like a battery booster or a flashlight with the strobe capability, things like that. That is a really good tool to have. And what you would do is put that outside your car somewhere. Just reach out there and turn it on. Don't get out of the car. Just put it out there where people can, you know, you're talking about at night, right?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Strobe light. Strobe light is a very, very useful tool in warning people because they can see it for a long ways off. They don't wait until
But
they just got near you.
Have they ever done a study or research on people who, intoxicated behind a car to where that type of a sensation draws people towards the vehicle?
No, I don't know of a study where that is, in fact, been done. But I will tell you what I do know and what I've heard from a lot of, police officers and other people, not just police officers. Here's what I've heard, and this kind of makes sense. Many times, and you know who else? Tow truck drivers. They've got a lot of good information because they're out there.
Oh, man, that's a tough one.
What the consensus seems to be is that the red lights at an intersection are what seemingly people are drawn to if they're not paying attention, like inebriated somehow, okay?
Right.
I don't want to say everybody out there is driving drunk, but for
Well,
whatever
just
reason,
takes one.
they're drawn to the red lights because they're the red lights at an intersection. So when they see the red lights of any kind, they're kind of drawn to that. They think, I need to be over here because there's the light coming up, you know, the stoplight. But for whatever reason, that is seemingly the most common thing they're drawn to. But a strobe light, no. I have never heard of anybody being drawn to a strobe light. As a matter of fact, at night they're very effective because it's so annoying. You know, they're like, man. But it does protect you, and I think it's a prudent thing to invest in. Something like
Cool, we have about a minute and a half. Can you talk a little bit about you're driving down the highway and you lose your power steering?
Mm-hmm.
What's that look like?
Well, let me just say, for all those out there, power steering is power steering. That means it's easy to maneuver the steering wheel back and forth. Years ago, we didn't have power steering. Not that many years ago. There were vehicles that were not equipped with power steering. The power part of it assists you and makes it easy. By most standards today, everybody has power steering. However, the car is still mechanically connected so that you can turn the wheel. Now, you may have to use more effort than normal, but you can turn the steering wheel back and forth without having the power steering part working. It's still mechanically hooked up. Yeah, it's a little harder to turn, but it's not it's not like you can't do it. They don't build the car that way. So, having said that, power steering, yeah, you can still turn it, Bob. You don't have to. It's not like you can't turn or just go straight or anything. You can always still steer.
What would cause the power steering to go out real quick?
Losing the belt, for one thing.
Okay, right.
If you don't have the belt on the power steering, now a lot of cars don't have that type of power steering with a pump anymore. They have electronic power steering, but that can still cause problems, losing power to the motor and the power steering. You know, still lose your steering, but you can still steer.
This is Bob Brooks. If you got a question for me, please go to the website at prudentmoney.com and send it in because we are all out of time. Till we do meet again next time, keep the faith and have a great rest of the day.
That's all the time we have for today. Questions or comments for Bob, or to find out more great information like what you've just heard, visit www.prudentmoney.com. Be sure to join Bob Brooks again for the next edition of Prudent Money.